Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. So who felt in this chanting that we stepped out from our daily material experience and we somehow went close to the spiritual realm of Shri Krishna? Who felt a little bit? Yeah. Someone else? Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. What was your experience to coming closer and just turn out this word and immediately we found ourselves in somewhere else, which is a very harmonious, very pleasure-giving situation? It was immediate step or slowly? Slowly. Someone else? Slowly, yeah. Which helps us. What was the main help for you? What was the main help?
Everyone chanted, chanting together.
Chanting together, yeah. If I don't chant, maybe you don't chant. I started to chant and you repeat it and then it came somehow together, yeah? Yeah, and the music, the tune, the rhythm, the karata, that makes us somehow resonate to the spiritual world, which is here. We are in the Dham. But sometimes we just feel we are in the material world. And to get into the Dham, we need to get some effort. Chanting together, music, really reading transcendental literature. Being in the material world is like a full darkness. And going to the spiritual world is like when the sun is coming up. Quite different, the world. But so long we are here in this material world that we used to live in the darkness. And by our good fortune, Srila Prabhupada came and he show us, no, you shouldn't stay in the darkness. Come out from this dark world and focus your consciousness, your spirit should focus on the spiritual world. So today we will read a very essential verse, which helps us to check ourselves. Are we going through the spiritual world, or we still accepting this material world as reality, as our eternal reality? Because we are eternal, so we cannot really feel that start something, the beginning and the end. We have some concept of that, but we don't feel it. We always feel this eternality. But somehow it's like our consciousness or ego or intellect say something different, and then we accept, okay, there is no eternality because everything is have an end. So I would like to introduce that verse, which is a quite key verse in our sadhana, in our practice, which leading us to the spiritual consciousness, to the liberated and to the highest consciousness. And meantime, I would like to help, which I feel also need, to do everything which really helps us to get into that consciousness as soon as possible and keep in that spiritual consciousness, because that is our goal. Not just have a nice class and then no real effect after that, and then you have to get out again from this suffering world. So now we receive the Bhagavatam respectfully by 2 verse reciting, which we generally do. The first is start with Nasta Presha Padresha. These 2 verses, there are many verses which helps us to focus on the mood of the Bhagavatam, but these 2 I found is just a basic to focus on the Bhagavatam. They are in the first canto. Nasta praesha vadreshu. Try to tell with me if you know that verse, of course. Some. Nasta praesha vadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavat uttama shloke bhaktir bhavaitiki naistiki. If you regularly chant this verse and we remember of the meaning, that helps a lot. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the person of the Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. And the next verse, which we regularly chant for helping us to focus on the spiritual topic, is Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaivam Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet. And the translation, before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the person of Godhead, Narayan, unto Naranarayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Sri Vyasadeva, the author. And we remember of Srila Prabhupada, and we offer respectful obeisances to Srila Prabhupada, who opened this door of spiritual to most of us, for most of us. know the verse? Sorry? You are so far. I don't see you, I don't hear you. Yeah, okay. And ask everyone who's brave to come close to me. Yeah?
Can you also please say the verse?
Yeah?
Because there is the number of the verses.
Okay. Yeah. The verse is Canto 3, chapter 29, and text 37.
We did 37, I think, before.
Hmm?
We did 37 a few days ago.
That's the verse, yeah? You don't remember.
Which one is
This is 38.
Okay. She wrote 38.
Mm-hmm. Sorry. No problem. Don't worry. Okay. We will, how to say? This is not a verse which is by Sanskrit is really, how to say, we don't remember on Sanskrit generally, we remember of the meaning of that verse as I see. So, okay. So the verse is about the time factor. And it will speak itself. So anyway, I will chant the Sanskrit, and if someone have a phone, you can find it and try to repeat, and then by word translation we can really get the first understanding of the verse, and then by proper translation and purport it's quite easy to understand the word. The deep meaning, we will go into it. You want to quickly write? Who need this board? Who don't have the phone which can help? Text 37. And also we can understand then we are after the 3 days festival, and most of the devotees worked very hard, so we are tired, and we are out of balance of regular preparations, so that's acceptable, that's we try to overcome. But generally the best is to have the regular program for our consciousness, for everyone, for guests, and then very peacefully we sit down, and for that morning period we really focus on our purification or experience of spirituality, and then the service will be much better, much more effective, much more enjoyable. So slowly I will chant a few times, and until Mataji is very quick and very expert in Sanskrit translations also. She's a good translator. No, not good, but anyway, she's doing the best. So, Rupa Vedas Padam Divyam Kalich Abhidhiyate Bhutana Mahad Adinam Yato Binna Drisham Bhayam. Again. Rupa Vedas Padam Divyam Kala Ich Abhidhiyate Bhutanam Mahadadinam Yato Bhinna Drisham Bhayam. Again. Rupa Bhedas Padam Divyam Kala Ich Abhidhiyate Bhutanam Mahad Adinam Yato bhinna drisham bhayam. Again. Rupa bhedaspadam divyam. Kala ich abidhiyate. Bhutanam mahadadinam. Yato bhinna drisham bhayam. Someone? Rupa Vedaspadam Divyam Kala Icha Vidiyate Bhutanam Mahadadinam Yato Bhinna Drisham Bhayam Rupa Vedaspadam Divyam Kala Icha Vidiyate Bhutanam Mahadaninam Yato Bhina Drisham Bhayam Rupa Vedaspadam Divyam Kala Icha Vidiyate Bhutanam Mahadadinam Yato Bhina Drisham Bhayam. Thank you very much, ladies. Rupa Vedaspadam Divyam Kala Icha Vidiyate Bhutanam Mahadadinam Yato Bhinna Drishabhayam. Rupa Vedaspadam Divyam Kala Itya Vidiyate Bhutanam Mahadadinam Yato Bhinna Drisham Bhayam. Now we continue with the word-by-word translation. Before that, I would mention that the most effective reading, study Srimad Bhagavatam, when we know the content also, when we appreciate that content. So here, in this chapter, we study the answer of Kapila to his mother Devahuti, who asked very important questions. Devahuti is representing the beginner devotee, and this verse is one of her very, very important, clever questions. Please describe the eternal time, which is a representation of your form, and by whose influence people in general engage in the performance of pious activities. It's at the beginning of this chapter. I will speak about later a little bit. This chapter 4, verse 4. So Devahuti experienced this influence of eternal time, which is in one sense one form of the Supreme Person, in the other sense influencing people in general. So now we hear and repeat the answer of Kapila about the eternal time. And this verse is the essence of the answer, and other verses after that will explain the details. So now the word-by-word translations. Rupa Veda of the transformation of forms Aspadam, the cause. Divyam, divine. Kalaha, time. Iti, thus. Abhidiyate is known. Bhutanam, of living entities. Mahat Adinam, beginning with Lord Brahma. Yataha, because of which. Bhinadrisham, with separate vision. Bhayam, fear. Translation given by Srila Prabhupada. The time factor who causes the transformation of the various material manifestations is another feature of the Supreme Personal Godhead. Anyone who does not know that time is the same Supreme Personality is afraid of the time factor. Please repeat again. The time factor who causes the transformation of the various material manifestations is another feature of the Supreme Personal Godhead. Anyone who doesn't know that time is the same Supreme Personality is afraid of the time factor. Purport given by Srila Prabhupada. Everyone is afraid of the activities of time, but a devotee who knows that the time factor is another representation or manifestation of the Supreme Personal Godhead has nothing to fear from the influence of time. The phrase Rupa Bhedaspadam is very significant. By the influence of time, so many forms are changing. For example, when a child is born, his form is small, but in the course of the time, that form changes into a large form, the body of a boy. And then, the body of a young man. Similarly, everything is changed and transformed by the time factor, or by the indirect control of the Supreme Personal Godhead. Usually, we do not see any difference between the body of a child and the body of a boy or young man because we know that these changes are due to the action of the time factor. There is cause for fear for a person who does not know how time acts. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swamiditi Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Namo Vishwadaya Krishna 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 Shivaram Swami Tinamine. So, the time factor, which is causing fear, if you don't know. So that's why I told that that's a very good checking verse. If you feel some fear coming from the time movement, the time factor, Shri Shri Lord Nishingadev Ki Jai, then we can understand that our development is not finished yet, or goal is not reached yet. And as I told and as I experienced, at the beginning of our spiritual advancement, we always have difficulties to focus and keep our consciousness on spiritual vision, spiritual understanding. That vision, how we see the world, how we see ourselves, is not an intellectual thing. It's kind of feeling, a heart, what our heart already contains, what our heart already accepted. That's causing how we see the world. Intellectually, we can a little bit adjust. Yes, I understand. I am not this body. But to act in that consciousness is not necessary if only we have this understanding in our intellect. We have to put it deeply and have to practice and then have to have some mercy to realize it. So that's Srila Prabhupada chose Srimad Bhagavatam to translate and to bring it to the West and then back to India, because he knew very well that almost impossible to advance in spiritual path without studying regularly Srimad Bhagavatam. There are other very important, very powerful scriptures. Bhagavad Gita, for example. It's not like Bhagavad Gita is not able to help us. We spoke many words about the glory of Bhagavad Gita, the conversation between Lord Krishna and Arjuna. But still, Lord Krishna accepted that form of Srimad Bhagavatam as himself. And that is the full transcendental form of Lord Krishna and all his transcendental realm is presented, is here in the literal incarnation of the Lord, Srimad Bhagavatam. So if anytime we're saying that we want to meet with Krishna, that could be the first step or some very important step. We meet with the Srimad Bhagavatam. And that's why Srila Prabhupada established this morning program, and main part of the morning program, the peak, the highest part, at least as the arrangement, the last part of the morning program is studying Bhagavatam. So how the Bhagavatam is Krishna? Krishna, we learn many things about Krishna, but we can divide the knowledge about Krishna to two parts. The one is his power, his qualities which appears in the creation, qualities which appears by his energies, shaktis, and the other is his personality. And his personality is a most attractive feature, but to see, to feel, to understand that personality, we need to prepare ourselves by studying his energies, studying his creation, studying his different incarnations. And the Bhagavatam is built up very nicely to present us all the necessary preparation and Krishna's personality together in such a way that we are not cheating ourselves we are not misleaded, and we really get the proper mood and proper consciousness, purity, to be eternal servant of Krishna, of that Krishna who appears in Srimad Bhagavatam, in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. So when we study one verse, we study a little part of a person, one of the person's very important qualities, like the kala, the time energy of Krishna. But studying one little part of a person is not necessarily helping us how that build up the personality of the person, the full understanding. So I found very helpful to go from a distance and then go back to the details, go up and down. Like sometimes we have these drones nowadays, and from the drones we can get a video of this place, for example, and very nicely they explain, oh, this is the temple room, this is the Goshala, oh, there are persons here, they are playing children, like that. And from the distance we see the whole picture, but not in details. And then the person, the reporter, comes close and then goes to the temple president, goes to the pujari, and introduce that part of the community. And then he goes back and then he give a big picture of different part of the community, and then goes again to the person. So the same way, I would like to introduce a little bit from the bird's eyes, all the Bhagavatam and the Canto 3 and the chapter 29. Maybe we have time for that. 15 minutes. So the Bhagavatam has 12 cantos, yeah? And some of us knows that, okay, the feet of Krishna is the first 2 canto, and so on, the face is the 10th canto. It's need a more deep study, but I just mentioned some of the main functions of the different cantos, and you can meditate on that, and you can study more deeply after morning program if you have study time. The first canto, if you study the first canto, you can understand that what is absolute necessary for a listener, for a devotee, to be able to hear, listen properly, to be able to focus on the topic, to be able to attach to that topic. So the first canto built up for explaining and somehow giving us the quality to be a good listener. Like Parikshit Maharaj, he is the perfect listener. He is the example of how have to listen the Srimad Bhagavatam and get perfection at the end of this period of listening. I don't go to the details. The Canto 2 mainly start with answers for the Parikshit Maharaj's many questions. And that answers help to avoid, to remove the most gross obstacles. The second canto, it teaches what is the basic sadhana for a person who want to become a pure person at the time of the end. So that's the sadhana teachings. Many ways how we can get from the basic to the next, to the next, to the next. From a materialistic person to become a, someone who accepting God in his guide, in his life as a guide. And the third canto goes back and accept that not everyone who is attached to know something about God is a spiritual person. The vision of the person generally start with materialistic vision. So the first canto helps to person who have imprinted material vision of the world. Like we take birth in a family, mother, father is, in this age, at least in Kali Yuga, mostly material persons. We are supported by matters, and all the teachings of the school is really gives us, okay, this world is a matter, energies, we can manipulate it and we can get some happiness from that manipulation. That's material vision. And yes, maybe there is a God, maybe that's created, maybe not, but it's not so important. A lot of we get this vision if you don't aware, if you are not really took birth in a devotee's family. But still there are some effect which makes us see the world like a material thing, like practical world. And many times we hear, oh, it's not practical. Yeah, maybe not practical in a material sense, but maybe it's very useful to spiritual. Anyway, so the third canto helps to see the principles, how we can accept that a supreme person, God created the world and arranged the world according to his will perfectly to bring people from this material consciousness to the fully surrendered situation. And the principles, after the principles, gives examples for that. And two examples. One example, who is not accepting that fact, and what is the result of that, like Hiranyaksha. And the other is who accept that fact but have difficulty to get it, like Devahuti. And other examples also. So, to build faith in Krishna as a person and as a shelter of our personality and as a cause of all causes, we should know very, very properly all about his energies, how they are working, and about his opulences, how he is able to do anything and everything. A little bit go back to the literatures. Most of us, I personally met with the Krishna consciousness principles through the Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita gives a very, like an infusion, like if someone is dying and you give an infusion at least to get some energies. The Bhagavad Gita is like that. Okay, wake up, hey. And then the Bhagavatam explaining Krishna and the Chaitanya Charitamrita shows how a pure devotee acting. So that's also a kind of picture. So, in the Bhagavatam, we know from the second canto that there are 10 main topics, like Sarga, Visarga, Sthanam, Poshanam, which is a shelter, Uttaya, the inner mentalities, Manvantara, the laws of the universe, Ishanukata, and Ashraya, how Krishna reciprocate to the love of his devotees. And then Mukti and Nirodha. And from that, the Sarga and Visarga start very deeply in the third canto. And also, as you see, in the school, when you have a child or you go to a foreign person and you want to start some education, always there is some exams, some preparation, how much you know and where you have to go to that school. Some have to go to the first level, some have to go to the second, because somehow we have some knowledge. In the reincarnation, we've got some knowledge. So maybe we are already able to listen, to count, and then we're not necessarily to have to start it again. So also we have to know the different cantos, which are the qualities and which are the advancements when we get to that canto. So the third canto itself explains that who is that person who need very much to listen the third canto. In the verse 3:26:5, Gunar Vichitra Shrijatim Sarupa Prakritim Praja Vilokya Mumuhe Sadya Sa Iha Jnana Guhaya. Divided into varieties by her threefold modes, material nature creates the forms of the living entities, and the living entities, seeing these, are illusioned by the knowledge covering feature of the illusionary energy. So, if someone is vision is to see the different animals, plants, human beings, different living entities like a different separated entities, that person needs to study the Srimad Bhagavatam third canto, because that gives you the basic vision of seeing everyone in equal level. Everyone is like a spirit soul in this knowledge covering energy, illusion, Maya. So our consciousness will determine, do we see the absolute truth or absolute feature of the word, or do we see some relative feature of the word? And that's test will help us to decide which canto I have to study. Of course, we read through the Srimad Bhagavatam, but study we need to choose according to our level of consciousness. If you have difficulties to hear, listen, then go to the first canto. If you have difficulty with sadhana, go to the second canto. If you have difficulty to see the word as spiritually one, go to the third canto, and so on. Every canto helps you to correct, to build up better faith in the spiritual reality, in the spiritual absolute truth. So, and then we can see that we have different anarthas. And also, these anarthas need proper medicine. The third canto is dealing with the anarthas of, as I mentioned, the modern atheistic scientific approach of the world. The question is, generally when we study in the school, is it possible to study and understand the material nature without God? What is the relationship between God and the material nature? If God deals directly with the material nature or not, and what does it mean for us use this material world for enjoyment? So these are the questions when we go to the third canto. If you don't know exactly the answers, the third canto will give the answers. So everywhere God is present, his energies are working according his permissions. So if we want to have a successful life in spiritual advancement, then we need to imprint, digest this fact through the study of third canto. In the third canto, there is different parts. The first, it starts with the creation, how Lord Vishnu is present everywhere, how his energies manifest and makes this material world, and how into the material world we spiritual living entities came by his glance. Just by his glance we are transformed from spiritual realm, which is another topic, into the material world, into some bodies. And then we have to start a progress to get out from this illusional world. And we see that the words, every transformation from different phases of creation, Lord Vishnu always have to act personally, always have to directly put some extra energy to move the material world. So without Vishnu, there is no anything happens in the material world. That's we learn from the third canto's first part. And then the time. The time start to appear in the first canto, in the 11th chapter. Why? Because before that, the creation, the knowledge of the creation mostly speaks about the object of the world. But the time is also kind of space-time, interactions are. And the 11th canto, 11th chapter explains how the time is really the part of this material world and how it works. And then here we see the most important effect of the time on our consciousness, the fear. So from the 25th chapter, Lord Kapildev started a very systematic teachings for understand this third canto and the Bhagavatam. And then we see he starts with explaining how different devotees are existing, like devotee in the Tamaguna, devotee in a Rajaguna, devotee in a Sattva Guna, and also what is pure devotion. And here in the 29th chapter, we can see that that's called this 29th chapter is establishing that knowledge which we regularly, daily remember, and then act at least as a beginner but pure devotee. So that is the beginning of being pure devotee. Okay, so we practically finished our time.
We have until 9 o'clock with questions.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah. So first of all, any of you have experienced some changes from coming into the door and no? Can you explain some inside experience? What you get by this association? By this short association? Anyone want to say something? I mean, before that class, we have morning program, maybe we will present, maybe not, but we have some experience some feeling, some happiness or sadness. No, we have also some feelings. Do you recognize that something changed? And what is that? Yeah, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Nitai Prabhu. It was very enlightening. Especially here, the details for me, it gave more conscious about, because it's a very important topic for us, Srimad Bhagavatam. And it gave for me more clear, clarity about the different cantos, and we could study going on like forever, but it gives a piece of good understanding, a little overview how we can understand, or maybe in a right way use the Bhagavatam somehow, because sometimes we maybe read only unconsciously, and now we can try to read maybe more conscious from at least a part of that when we are searching for a right sadhana or whatever, then we can choose and have a choice and have an idea where to find or which part of Krishna we should approach with it in Bhagavatam. Thank you very much.
Yeah. A short reflection that when I read these very special topics, first I have to understand. I have to understand the sentences, the words sometimes. They have special meanings. And then I have to question myself, what is the message for me? And what is the message for my situation? And also, what is the message for my faith? And what is the message for my consciousness to decide? We always have to decide, but what is the basic of this decision? The Shastra, which I just started to read and study, or some previous understanding of previous, Shastras and previous principles. It's not easy to change our decision system and put onto the Shastras basic, from which we used to have from childhood and from previous lives. That's the process. Is very serious, deep process to change our decision system and put faith into the Shastra and know the Shastra to have basic for the next life direction, or how we do a service, how we get some success and how we get some happiness. How we want to become happy. We all want to become happy. No, we are very serious. Focusing is not really a level of happiness, but it's maybe steps for the happiness. So how to get the real eternal happiness and the most highest happiness? That's start with the Shastra, faith in the Shastra, deep faith in the Shastra. And then we learn from the Shastra what happiness would be really matching to our spiritual nature. Thank you very much. Next one. Yeah, please. Sorry.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I was listening before I arrived when you mentioned how Krishna is explaining his different energies, and in order to see his, maybe I'm paraphrasing you now, in order to experience his presence, we need to have a proper understanding about his different energies, right? So, and now you're saying how actually Shastra should guide our lives actually, and in one sense is showing us our inner difficulties, let's say, anarthas and so on. And the question comes to my mind, it's not a question, it's like a difficulty I'm going through, like all these stories and, so-called stories and, this deep philosophical knowledge, in order to see it in that way, like you mentioned, what's the purpose of the first canto and second and so on, what's the purpose of this story and that story, and the question comes to my mind, like, if I didn't hear this from you or from other Vaishnavas, the explanation of the specific chapters and so on, then I would never be able to reflect this on my own life and in my own self. So I read, I'm reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, but still some stories I read once and twice. And then after 1 year or something, I hear from a devotee, oh, actually the story of whomever, this devotee or King Puranjana or whatever is actually about this and that. And this never occurred to me. So it seems for me that it's impossible to understand Srimad Bhagavatam and the depth of Shastra without self-realized devotees. So can you please say something about that I can also have my own realizations?
Yeah. The Srimad Bhagavatam use examples, using what is this, symbolism or not?
Analogies?
Analogies. So Srimad Bhagavatam is compared to 3 different things in the material world which we have experienced. Always they're using the experience of the material world to explain what is the use, how we will experience spiritual things. So the first comparison is the Bhagavatam is like a light, like a lamp, a little lamp. So in the darkness, total darkness, when you have a little light, a little candle or some new phone, what you see? You see at least yourself, you see what is in your way, you want to go out, you don't, where is the door and something like that. So that's the first experience. If we use the Bhagavatam or the Shastra, first we see some light, some basic understanding. Oh no, I am not this body. I don't afraid if the body changing. So some ABC of the spiritual experience is coming up. And then if we use that, then we go and we see the sun coming up. So when we study more deeply the Shastra and we purifying ourselves, then the Shastra will give that experience. Oh, no, I see so many things in absolute level. I understand so many happenings. And I really start to feel, oh, I understand. I experience the absolute level of the world. It takes time, but when the sun comes up, we will experience that through the Shastra. And the third comparison, the third example, who knows what is the Bhagavatam? Try to remember. Another example, Bhagavatam is like a sun, Bhagavatam is like a lamp. Yeah, I see you are so hungry for the breakfast, yeah. And just today's Ekadasi, maybe for Brahmachari is not a fruit coming, but yeah, the fruit, the ripened fruit, the taste, the attraction for the service, attraction for Krishna Katha. You will feel when you read, when you study, when you have conversation with devotees, that experience coming from the Shastra, the attraction feature. Already you have some, because just understanding that the world is not a material, that a fear is disappearing, and then you feel that, I'm not fearing. I'm just satisfied. Whatever Krishna gives, that's okay. It's not necessarily really a ripened fruit. It's not a nectarian taste, but it's something which goes there. It's not ripened yet, but it's also a taste. So it's different persons have different experience of these 3 phases of realizing the Bhagavatam, realizing the spiritual Shastra. And then many times you study with devotees and they explain, oh, for me this Puranjan or this Prithu Maharaj means like that. You start to think, yeah, me also. like Devahuti's situation, when she have a pure devotee husband, and then what she asked when he's Karnamamuni offering, okay, I bless you, what you want? She want a pleasure trip all over the material world. And then, by experiencing that, she become tired for the frustration of these material pleasures, and she sit down and ask, oh my son, I lose my chance first. No, I ask you, please remove all this burden of this desire for material enjoyment. So, it's telling you something about your situation, this Devahuti's experience. Yeah, if you want a blessing, oh, some nice place. And then it's nice place become burden. Then you ask the Lord, please remove my desire of enjoying this material life. In that way you will experience, I see I am not this body, so I don't accept that this body will enjoy this life. Maybe get some food, maybe not, maybe too warm, too cold. But it's okay. Don't worry. Just focus on the Krishna Katha, focus on devotees, focus on service, focus on Guru, and then you are happy. And that's the main point. It's okay. Thank you. And you have some...
You asked what change we experienced since coming from this room, and I was very occupied with other things, work, other things, and a little stressed about them, which is usually some kind of escape also from spirituality in a way, being stressed about some other thing, because we don't need to be stressed actually. But then when you were explaining Bhagavatam, actually how Krishna is helping us through these different cantos, and how actually Srila Prabhupada is helping us, it felt very soft in my heart, and you are trying to help us understand it. So I don't know, I felt even a little bit like some sadness mixed with hope and sweetness in my heart, which almost made me want to cry, which is not often the case for me. So that's the change I experienced.
Thank you very much for your sharing, for your experience. It's not easy to explain by words what we feel.
Yes.
We feel, but we are not used to tell about to others, and to others who maybe don't understand what does it mean for us. Thank you very much, your braveness. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
9 o'clock. So, but we can continue afternoon, tomorrow, if you have some time to come together and churn this topic of Bhagavatam, either the third canto or the other topics. And that is the way how we are not in the past, not lamenting on the past, which is the cause of the ignorance. We are not hoping something in the future, which is the influence of the Rajaguna. We are not just present and flow feeling, yes, I am part of this world, which is the cause of the goodness, but we are eternal, humble servant of the God, which is the spiritual influence of all beings. So 4 states. And then in one day we know who we are for Krishna's service, for devotee service, and spiritual life. So just don't stop until you reach that phase of consciousness. Just don't stop. Thank you very much. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Nitai Gaura Srila Prabhupada ki, Nitai Gaura Premanande.